Hello. Today, I wanted to share my theory on the multiverse. I've been thinking about the multiverse a lot lately, as it has been in a lot of movies and TV shows. So I wanted to share my perspective on the multiverse. Now, I know there's some Spanish words up here. I'm borrowing a Spanish classroom to do this thing. Just ignore those. They're not important. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, check out other videos, whatever. But this is about the multiverse. Okay, so I wanted to start with the definition of the multiverse, at least how I perceive the multiverse to be defined, and that is a collection of every possible universe in existence, right? So most movies will explain this by showing, like, I'm using this example, so I don't know how well you can see this on the video, but I've drawn an intersection here in the road intersection. Here is a car, so in the movies they'll say, well, in our universe, the car turns right, or maybe, I don't know if it's flipped on the video, I don't know how cameras work, but basically, in our universe, the car turns right? But in another universe, the car turns left, or in a third universe, the car goes straight. So that's what sort of differentiates the multiverse, is decisions that not only humans make, but also animals and plants and any sort of decisions or anything that could change at all, right? But I want to go deeper here, because most movies, most TV shows will just stop here. They'll just say, okay, well, it can go straight, or it can go left, or it can go right. But you got to think about it. They can choose anything. They can choose to stop. They can choose to, slam on the brakes, or they can choose to hit the brakes for a little bit less, or they could choose to, hit the gas, or they could, they could speed up while they're going right, or speed up while they're going left, or speed up while they're going forward. But the big thing is, okay, let's say they're hitting the brakes, and I'm going to draw sort of a brake pedal, right? So their foot is here, right? This is their foot. It's pushing down, it's pushing down on the brake. But the thing is, this you can kind of see this is an angle here. This measure can be different for every multiverse. So let's say they push down so far that this is a 45-degree angle. I know it doesn't look like it, but pretend it's a 45-degree angle, right? In another universe, we could say, oh, well, then it goes to a 30-degree angle. But the multiverse is way bigger than you think, okay? Because there's a different universe out there where the only difference between this universe we're in and that universe is, instead of this being a 45-degree angle at which they hit the brakes when they're turning right at this intersection, instead of being a 45-degree angle, it is a 44.9999999. So basically, that's sort of how big the multiverse is that there's so many worlds that are very similar to ours that are just a tiny little bit off, right? So most of the time you kind of conceptualize the multiverse of here's our world, and then here's the other ones around it. But all the ones around us, an infinite number around us, are just going to be exactly the same, except for a tiny little difference, like this arc measure. But of course, it could be anything. I could say a word a second later, or I could pace over to this side, or I could, move my foot just a fraction of an inch to the left of where or whatever. It goes on forever. In this multiverse, movies talk about it. I think Everything Everywhere All at Once is a great movie for the multiverse. There's some better or worse movies about the multiverse, but I think Everything Everywhere All at Once is one of the best ones, because it really encapsulates the idea of nothing matters. They say it over and over again in the movie. Nothing in the multiverse matters, and it's the biggest problem with the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now. And really anybody sort of working with the multiverse, is that the multiverse is a terrible concept. It's really cool, oh, well, over here, Iron Man's got a different story behind him, or what if Peggy Carter was Captain America or whatever. But you gotta think, that's a cool idea to start with, but when you talk about sort of what the story will be when the multiverse exists, nothing matters. And let me tell you why. It's because when you're in the multiverse, there's an infinite number of worlds, not only that look exactly like yours, but like look different, but there's an infinite number of worlds, okay? If we kill a main character off here, there's literally an infinite number of that main character. Infinite is so like unconceivable. You could make movies like until you die, and it doesn't matter because you can just keep bringing back that main character from the dead. That's why Marvel is like at a sort of problem spot here, because no matter what they do, nothing's gonna matter. There's no stakes. There's no it doesn't matter, because if you kill a bad guy, well then an infinite number of bad guys will just come beat you, and if you lose, then an infinite number of the good guys will just come in. So that's the big problem with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I'm now getting to my actual theory part, and that is multiversal travel. It is not possible, when you're like thinking, of course it's not possible. Don't be ridiculous. But I'm proving that it could never be possible, ever, ever, ever. No matter what science discovers, no matter what happens, multiversal travel is completely impossible. So, to start off, we're going to say that it is possible. Let's say hypothetically, what if traveling the multiverse was possible, right? We've got Jeff here. Jeff has invented the multiversal travel machine. This machine can travel to different universes in the multiverse. Now, when you get in this thing, there's going to be a big control board, right? You hit a button, and that chooses the multiverse you go to. I'm assuming that's how it works, right? Because if we can conceptualize it, then it has to exist somewhere. That's one of the big things about the multiverse, is that if you can think it up, it does exist somewhere, because it's everything possible. So if you can conceive an idea, that idea is out there in the multiverse somewhere. So out there in the multiverse somewhere, Jeff has built this multiversal travel machine, and there's a big control panel, and you hit a button, and that's what chooses where you're going. So let's say this is Jeff's world right here. Jeff hits the button, and he goes to that world, right? I don't know how well you can see that, but he's chosen that world. Well, you remember when we were talking about decisions? Jeff can make a different decision. Jeff, in another world where he invents the same multiverse, he does everything the exact same way. But this time, he chooses to go to that world. You see where I'm going? There's an infinite number of Jeff choosing an infinite number of all of these. So basically, Jeff is going everywhere. Not like the same Jeff, but copies of the same Jeff are going to every possible universe. Guess where we are? We are a possible universe. That means in some universe, Jeff has hit the button to come right here. That's crazy, right? We've got a multiversal traveler in our midst. Someone here has traveled the multiverse, but there's a slight problem with this. There's just a slight problem with this, and that is, what if let's say Jeff scratches his head, right? When he gets in the machine, he scratches his head, he's thinking, right? What if he scratches his nose? That's another Jeff. That's this Jeff. What if he scratches his leg instead? What if he sneezes? There's an infinite number of Jeffs making different decisions throughout Jeff's life. That means there's an infinite number of Jeffs coming to us. And not only is there an infinite number of Jeffs coming to us, there's an infinite number of every person who's ever existed coming right here to us. Because there's an infinite number of people, and you might be thinking, well, Jeff's the only one who invented this. Not true. If we can conceive the idea that somebody else also invented a multiversal travel machine, we can come up with that idea in our heads. It exists somewhere. So that means there's an infinite number of Jeff, and there's an infinite number of everyone ever also coming to our universe. If there was one Jeff coming to our universe, the government could cover that up. They could hide it in Area 51. But if there's an infinite number of Jeff and an infinite number of everyone else, they can't hide that. They just can't, right? You can't conceive how many machines that could fit a person, how many different things would be appearing at once. It's not possible. That's why it's not possible. That's why I've successfully proven multiversal travel to be impossible. But the thing is, the multiverse can still exist. We just can't travel between it. And I would doubt that we could see between it either. The biggest thing is we cannot travel, we cannot make communication because they would have communicated with us. We can't interact with other multiverses. However, we can still theorize about the multiverse, and we can still sort of look at it and go like, oh, I bet there's a universe out there where my friend goes to Harvard, even though he's currently unemployed and works at a construction site, you know? Like, there's all you can think about that. And so, last part I want to talk about here is when I'm conceptualizing different multiverses. Give me 1 second here. Cause and effect. When I'm conceptualizing a multiverse, let's say, for example, let's take that one. My friend works in a construction site. He's not the brightest of the bunch. I've conceptualized that he goes to Harvard. But the thing is that a cause or an effect? I think it's an effect, because he's gone to Harvard because of something. We're not wondering what he does at Harvard. Who cares what he does at Harvard? Nobody knows what he does at Harvard. We want to know, how the hell did he get into Harvard? How? How? And then you can think of all these different causes and all these different things. So you can either, when you're thinking up a multiverse, I either think of it as like, that's the effect, you know? When I think of something, I'm like, is that the effect or the cause? Give me just 1 second. I'm going to try to think of an example for a cause. Let's say that, you know, we have a car wreck, you know? What we're more interested in is what's going to happen after that car wreck, you know? The car wreck was caused by something, of course, but we want to know what happens after the car wreck. What happens to me? What happens to my family? What happens to everybody around me, all my friends and stuff? So that's the multiverse. That's what I think of the multiverse. It is sad that no one will ever be able to travel the multiverse ever. And you might be wondering, well, why isn't there just someone in the future? Well, the multiverse also spans time. We can conceptualize the idea that somebody in the year 1780 came up with a multiversal travel machine. Somebody out there in the multiverse was way ahead on science than we are. And in their time, you know, and the timeline and time travel with the multiverse is very confusing. I don't know what to think about that. I don't know, you know, if people are traveling from the multiverse and they're at the same time, and does it take time to go from multiverse to multiverse? There's a bunch of questions there that will never get answered because we'll never be able to travel the multiverse. Thank you for watching my theory thing.